Welcome back to the show, everyone. Craig and Jonah here today. We have sort of a short time window here, so we're going to try and pack a bunch in. We're going to have shortened foreplay today. This is
Right
a
to the
quick.
main act.
This is a quickie. So we had an interesting question from I won't put their name on here, but we just got done releasing 2 episodes of our commentary on the Christopher West podcast where he answered a couple of questions that I had. And this listener, I think, was chiming in or responding to sort of the question I made about, well, what's the harm? Is there harm, let's say, from engaging in masturbation
Out of weakness, essentially.
above and beyond what the church says is wrong, or solo acts or anything? Is there an actual tangible harm there other than let's say, whatever the church says, if it's a sin, it's a sin? And of course, Christopher West spent a lot of time sort of trying to, well, he kind of said, well, it's sinful, therefore it must be harmful. And we had a discussion about that at our last episode. So this guy says, so I have a question. You acknowledge that we must go to confession regularly. Yep, we've said that.
Yep.
If there's anything that we've talked about more than masturbation, it's go to confession regularly.
Go to confession.
Even if you don't need to, go anyway.
Yep.
So he said, I assume you agree that we mustn't consume the Eucharist while we have unconfessed mortal sin on our souls. Yes.
Yep, we agree with that.
Agree.
Totally.
Can we prove a tangible earthly consequence for not confessing our sins or for partaking in communion outside of a state of grace? I think what he's getting at here is there's no obvious personal bodily harm from receiving communion unworthily, but we of course believe it's wrong.
Mm-hmm. And it makes a good point. That's a fair point.
I understand his point. Kind of requires a distinction here. So in my mind, and this is me sort of spitballing, this is not a philosopher or theologian, but there seems to be a difference between sins that deal with our relationship with God,
mm-hmm.
versus our relationship with ourselves, our own bodies, or other people.
Mm-hmm.
As Catholics, we believe God exists. Most of us don't necessarily haven't had any physical experiences of God or anything
mm-hmm.
real. I know there's proofs of God existence and all that. I studied that in philosophy. I don't know that you can reason yourself to convincingly believe God exists, but we believe God exists. Same thing with the Eucharist. I think, we believe what the Eucharist is, but I don't know that you can reason your way through it. I think it's just a matter of faith, right?
Unless you've experienced a Eucharistic miracle.
Sure,
perhaps.
maybe. For most of us, that's not the case. Everything about communion and our relationship with God is sort of based on a spiritual belief, a faith that's kind of separate for the most part from our own bodies and our own experiences with other people.
Mm-hmm.
Not saying that's true in all cases, but for the most part, there isn't that same. It's just a different experience between when it comes to, use the Lord's name in vain, skip mass on Sundays. Like, yes, sins, but
as far as tangibly feeling those,
yeah. I mean, but I think for the most part, when it comes to sins about ourselves or sins against other people, whether it's adultery or theft, murder,
mm-hmm.
even coveting someone else's stuff, I think
clear physical issues could result in those.
Yep. Generally speaking, sins of a relationship with ourselves or with others manifests itself in some way beyond the fact that it's a sin.
Mm-hmm.
Gluttony. Okay. You get chubby like me. Okay. All kinds of, that's my general experience, is that
mm-hmm.
there's a correlation there. Maybe people could think of examples of things that, I don't know.
And I guess the reason that we, recommend going to confession is that it's just the safe route, you know. And it really gets at a point that I think about frequently. What exactly is a mortal sin, as far as like how often are people in a state of mortal sin? They have to have full knowledge and full consent. That's in the catechism. But how many people really have full knowledge and full consent? And that's tough to wrestle with. And that's where it's up to everybody to decide whether or not they should go to communion. I mean, I'm sure there's sins in everybody's life that, depending on how you look at them, could be considered mortal, as far as like if you have a real conservative view on life or scrupulous, then you're committing mortal sins all the time. But is that reality? I don't know. That's difficult to resolve mentally, I think. And that's really where the safety net of going to confession comes in.
I would say my personal perspective, and this is just mine, take this for what it's worth, but I tend to think that it's less common that people are committing mortal sin than maybe our more scrupulous side would say. Same thing with myself. But I just tend to err on the side of caution.
Mm-hmm.
If there's any kind of reasonable doubt in my mind, I'm not gonna take a chance. I'm not gonna go to communion, even though I don't really think I did anything that satisfies all the different requirements of a mortal sin. I don't know. Like, again, because there's no like tangible blowback, so to speak, if you go to communion in the wrong, state, you don't know necessarily whether you're worthy or not. And
that's where I think, God is merciful, at least in today's era. I mean, it's not like with Onan where he was struck down, quickly. I think if people were getting struck down quickly after doing whatever, you would really think about things.
Yeah, there you go.
It all comes back to Onan.
Yeah.
All roads lead to Onan.
Yeah. If God would strike us down every time we went to communion unworthily, I guess that would
the communion lines would be short.
And the confession lines would be long.
Yep. No, I think that just speaks to God's mercy, though. He loves and cares for us all and just wants us to find the path eventually. And, everybody has their own different path. Like, especially in today's world, there's a lot of different paths. And I think maybe perhaps the biggest sin is just going through life never thinking about God or communicating with God. I don't know. I think that because I think if you reach out to God, he'll always find you, or help you and, along the way. But I think if you ignore God, you make your own path kind of. I don't know.
I recorded a video. I don't know if I've uploaded it yet or not. I don't think I have. It was a thought that came to me yesterday. There are definitely people in my life that sort of grew up with the faith, but really struggle with their belief and are very much leaning towards the fact that there is no God. And are kind of in a very empty space, so to speak. What I tell those people is, look, it's don't beat yourself up for feeling the way you feel. You can't just will your way to feeling a relationship with God or believing in God. But what I think you need to do is just show up. Get yourself to mass every Sunday and on holy days. Even if you're just sitting there, if you don't feel like you can go to communion or whatever, so be it. But make yourself available to God. And at least you're doing your part to allow God to reveal himself in the when and under the circumstances that he sees fit.
And I would say it'd be good just to pray, even if you don't feel like it, just a small bit every day, and just ask God to just, reveal himself to you or whatever, bring you the peace that you need or the love that you need. And I think that, at least in my experience, I think God hears those prayers, and I don't know.
I think so.
I think that if anybody reaches out to God, he's always going to be right there. You just might not see it initially or feel it initially, but he's right there.
Yep. So that's good advice.
And go to confession.
Yeah, I mean, go to confession. Err on the side of caution. Confession is just a good experience overall.
For the most part,
it's a good maintenance.
I've never had a bad confession, I guess. There's sometimes though where I think they don't always go the way that I think they're going to go.
Not every confession is a home run or whatever, however you want to gauge them. But and if you've had a bad experience in the confessional, that's tough. I can't imagine what that's like. Just find someone else to go to, I guess. and it's okay. I mean, we're humans. We can't really control our feelings so much. It's just kind of the way we are. You just try and manage it the best you can.
Just know that God loves you.
Yeah. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I just think that, you know, the bodily urges, especially for men, the sexual urge is, you ask every healthy man on the planet, he's going to share that experience.
Yeah.
Not everyone shares the same belief in God or experience with God or whatever. Like, you don't naturally, I don't think we just naturally come into existence understanding that the Eucharist is what the Eucharist is. We get there through faith, listening, and belief. I just think they're very different situations. And the reason that I dwell on is there harm isn't to say that it's not a sin if there's no incidental harm to it. Although I think that makes it worthy of discussion. But more so, if there's a harm associated with it that we can't see, that could help some people overcome things that they struggle with. And this is something a lot of people struggle with. If they could see that not only is it a sin, but it's going to have detrimental consequences to me or to my relationship, maybe that's the added incentive or whatever that they need, motivation they need to overcome it. If it can, assuming it can be overcome. I remain skeptical.
Some people have done
it. They claim. So anyway, well, so I wanted to segue here to can you give us an update on the wet dream pill or switch or whatever?
Well, so in a previous episode we had talked about how effective it would possibly be in overcoming sins of the flesh if you could more regularly experience nocturnal emissions, I guess. And so we had talked about how if there was a pill that would do that, would we take it? And there's no such thing for men, but apparently they've come close to that for women. There is an article here called entitled "A Doctor Discovers the Orgasmatron," and there's similar articles about this.
Such a great name.
It's like discovering plutonium by accident. It's a Seinfeld reference. So interestingly, there's different ways to do this in women where if you stimulate certain nerves, right, either in the back or in the lower back, it can create orgasms. And so they were using it to treat things like back pain or bladder dysfunction. And so there was one treatment where they were stimulating these nerves, and the women would do it with the push of a button, and it would create orgasms accidentally in them. And the one woman apparently had blisters on her finger from pushing the button so much. Something that I can't even.
Please send me that. I'm gonna link to that.
So anyways, it just seems like in order to create this scenario, or the closest thing to having a pill that you take that produces a nocturnal emission, maybe we need to get Elon Musk on board with the Neuralink, and we could set it up to stimulate whatever nerve at like 3 o'clock in the morning while we're sleeping, and then it'd be over.
Well,
and then if you could do that, would it be morally illicit? I don't know if it wouldn't be.
And well, so a couple of things,
because it's involuntary to a certain degree, but it's still voluntary in that you're setting it up for that.
Well, you are if you sleep through it, you're not experiencing the pleasure, which seems to be the
problem.
Yeah, I think a lot of people put a lot of weight on the pleasure you're seeking through solo acts or whatever. If this eliminates that, does that eliminate people's concern? But
I would kind of, to a certain degree, it's better than being tempted, right?
Yeah, I mean, it would solve a lot of problems. I think I'd want it password protected so my wife doesn't turn it on in the middle of the night. But do you have to be sleeping? So
oh gosh, I think
pulling out the catechism here.
Yes, I think you should have to be sleeping. I mean, if you're gonna set up rules like that, I would think you should be sleeping. But
just listen now.
All right, I'm listening.
by masturbation is to be understood the deliberate stimulation of the genital organs,
not the brain,
in order to derive sexual pleasure.
not the brain or spinal cord.
I don't think those are genital organs, are they?
Man,
It doesn't.
so by definition, perhaps it would be okay. But I think that also if
Spirit of the law.
Yeah, spirit of the law versus letter of the law. And then I think too, it would lead to problems, like you might wear out you might get blisters on your finger. I don't know.
That seems like a risk we're taking. But seriously though, so I mean, I think for women, the brain is much more of a, I would say, a sexual organ.
At least half and half, probably.
Than men.
Yeah.
I think. I mean, they say that's, but it doesn't even say sexual organ. It says genital organ.
Oh, boy.
I think either under even Christopher West's definition, I don't think the brain or the back or some other nerve is a genital organ.
Looks like another question for Christopher West, maybe.
Yeah, I guess.
Because it really, I mean, you could do this potentially. Like if you had enough money where, having some sort of elective surgery wasn't a concern, you could possibly do this in reality.
So is it
assuming that it was through like the spinal cord or some nerve sort of,
So the deliberate stimulation of the genital organs in order to derive sexual pleasure. So are you indirectly stimulating the genital organs?
I would assume that that's probably what they would say. But
at least for men, but for women, I don't know.
If you set it up to do it at night, like while you're sleeping,
seems the safest.
I think that'd be the safe route. Where's Elon?
Yeah, I mean the Neuralink. I didn't have a lot of interest in it until now.
Yeah, it might, because he's going to use Neuralink, or he's planning to help blind people see again, or people that have, like spinal issues walk, or do some pretty amazing medical sorts of things. So this would really be pretty low on the totem pole, compared to those other things as far as the benefits. But
well, okay. Well, how about this? Can couples use the Neuralink and the lady to create orgasm during the course of an appropriate marital act?
I would think so. I mean, that would be reasonable.
That would solve a lot of problems too.
Hit the button.
Again.
But then you run into is it like 20 minutes before, like you gotta get the timing down. But it's easier with a button.
That's someone else's problem to figure out. We're just here to like provide the solution. They're gonna have to provide the ethical parameters.
No,
man, the Neuralink.
Well, technically those weren't even Neuralink. That was just like some sort of implant that sent electrical impulses into a nerve in your back or in the woman's back.
It is fascinating. And you said they have not really been able to recreate that in men.
Well, for whatever reason, they've only tested women. I didn't Google men. I think that they were looking. So bladder dysfunction tends to occur in women more after they have kids. But you think lower back pain, that's common for both sexes. So I don't know.
This sounds like an easier thing to sell than like chemical castration and stuff. I'm just thinking. I don't want to go on a limb here too far, but it seems to me that there's more people that would be interested in this route.
I don't know. Would you really have like some sort of implant put in your body to get rid of the issues like that?
Doesn't it say in scripture, if your body cause you to sin, get an implant?
Cut it off. Don't get an implant.
Get an implant, and I don't know.
Sleep through it.
Yeah, we have to go back to the Greek or something, but I'm really fascinated by this.
Yeah, the Orgasmatron. Who would have thought?
Wow.
We're closer to that nocturnal emission pill than we ever thought, huh?
Yeah. This sounds organic. This sounds even more organic than a pill. It's just like electrical waves. Like it's like essential oils almost. For those that really want it natural.
Yeah, there isn't much more natural than an implant. That's for sure.
Computer generated. Oh, Well,
I don't know. It's funny to think about, but maybe I bet you someday that could be a reality though. Like if it can do,
doesn't seem very far away.
it does not seem that far away since it's reproducible.
Yeah, well, considering
In
they've
women,
already
at
been
least.
able to more or less do it in women.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, wow, that's hmm. So that it feels like a poor segue to go to this. Anything else you wanted to add about that?
Yeah, I was gonna. So they conducted this. So this the sample size is small. There was only 11 women involved, and it was published in the Journal of the American Society of Anesthesiologists. So 6 of the women, 6 of 11, had never had an orgasm before. 5 of them had, but then lost the ability. But they were able to stimulate 91% of the women, 10 out of 11. Yep.
That's amazing.
Yep. So there was a 48-year-old woman who participated in the study that told Good Morning America that she lost her ability to achieve orgasm when menopause hit. But she says the device, dubbed the Orgasmatron, allowed her to experience extreme pleasure once again.
How have I not heard of this before?
I don't know. This is an article from 2004. You're probably in the seminary back then.
Jeepers, almost.
Once we found the controls, what caused the stimulation to be greater, more pleasurable, that's when they saw results. There were a couple times where she had multiple orgasms because of the stimulator.
Well, I can already see
But she said that the most difficult part was when the study was over and they had to give it back.
She didn't show up for her last appointment.
She says, when I gave it back, I came in the office and the doctor took the electrodes out of, and it was like I was losing my best friend. It was very hard to give it back. It worked so well.
That's okay. Well, I'm sure the naysayers are going to be all over it. Go ahead.
So basically, the study, it was direct sacral nerve stimulation, and the device is FDA approved for bladder problems and pain. So it has received FDA approval.
Does anything go inside the woman?
I think it's in your back. I think it's in their back. So the sacral nerve is near the lower back. Yeah, I don't know. It's
all right. So I got to know people's thoughts on this. So, all right, what do you what
okay. So the device can cost up to $17,000. So I mean, it's not like crazy money, but it's a lot of money though for like a sex toy.
You may have to share one. You have to get a.
I think it's an implant and it's in there. It sounds like they could remove it fairly easily though, just based on this article. But I don't know. But the doctor says that he believes some women would be happy to pay that amount to have the Orgasmatron permanently embedded in their lower backs. He says the device could be implanted on an outpatient basis. So that seems pretty simple.
I can't believe that this isn't everywhere right now.
So, and it's funny, it talks about sacral nerve stimulation. I saw, so my YouTube feed is pretty insane, really, basically because of the show. But there was this woman that said that she was able to achieve orgasm by her husband massaging her lower back, basically her sacral nerve area, which is the lower, like kind of triangular shaped part of the lower back. And so,
well, it's been a long.
Seems like you could stimulate that area without an electrode.
It's been a long time since we talked to our old friend Jeannie. I'll have to ask her about this, but she claimed that there's all kinds of different ways that women, even just through pure mental exercise, can achieve orgasm.
Which is a very different experience than for a man.
Yeah, there's like one way. That I'm just very fascinated in terms of two big questions. Number one, what do people think about that? Do you think it's consistent with the catechism? Does it matter if you're awake or not? Does it if there was an equivalent thing for a guy, they stuck an electrode in your back and it created that,
and then you never have even the temptation again.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah, I mean, so what is
some people are going to say, no, you still have the temptation. I suspect that it'd be lessened.
I think so.
I would say, especially like, and I don't know, maybe it doesn't seem like that, like it's an automatic timer sort of thing yet. So like you'd still have to have your spouse wake up and hit the button or something like that, while you're sleeping.
That seems like an inconvenience that you can bribe your way around. I don't know. So what do people think? Do you think, what's your overall reaction to this? And from an ethical or moral standpoint, does it matter if you're awake or not? Does it matter if it's man or woman? And then second, the more important question, would you do it if it was?
If it was more widely available.
Mhm.
You know, 17,000 is, you know, a financial constraint for most people, I would say, to solve a problem like this.
You probably offset it by some of the kids you're not having. I don't know.
Well, that's, you know, yeah, if you combine that with just, boy, you know, that's a solid point as far as I would think that for a vast majority of Catholics that practice NFP, many of the children come from, you know, just more the man side of things than, you know,
and that's super intentional.
the woman initiating.
Yeah, not super intentional, but okay. Well, I hope people will comment on that. I'm curious what people. Please don't call my bishop about it, but
we're just talking openly.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by it. So we're going to go ahead and wrap this up.
My feeling is that if you're sleeping, I would say that it's potentially
seems like an easier
in the
call.
realm. Yeah,
seems like an easier call.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I hope we haven't heard the last of this one. So
yeah, the article was old. I should dig for new articles.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Jonah.
You bet.
Till next time, everyone.
Go to confession.
Have a good one.
Bye.